I don't know, it had her national address back when she and Robert were first married, and they lived we were going to school in Nashville. I'm taking, so she probably was visiting my parents and accidentally left the Bible behind, and so when Gary and I moved in there some 15 or so years ago, well, I found that my Bible was wearing out, so I began using it. So it's interesting how life goes on. Yeah, I guess the pastor suggested I tell you about this, how I went about doing this research. I was dawned on me that, I haven't forgotten about computers, I just haven't been exposed to them recently. And I thought, well, you just had a computer, all you do is just punch King James Version and concordance and old and and all the material would end up, but I was not able to go to the computer, but I wasn't able to get it going. So I wound up doing it the old-fashioned way with concordance and a pencil. Only modern tools I had were post-it notes and highlighter. I'm sitting behind a pulpit. I don't want to tell you about this. I've been behind a pulpit before. It's been a while, but in our home, there's a church on the hill above us, but we always went to the church in town about 2 miles away, except there was a while there when our daddy had work responsibilities on Wednesday nights, and mother never learned to drive, so she and the children went to Bible prayer meeting at the little church on the hill. It's not little anymore, it's a big church, but it was a little church in those days. And the pastor didn't come to town except for just on weekends. So we take turns doing the service, and I don't think we thought it was any kind of sexist thing at all. We just stood behind the pulpit because it was there. There was not room in the church, to have a special room for a prayer meeting. So we did what worked. So that's kind of what we're doing today. We're doing what works. The thing is, I open this Bible, the first reference I find to old age is, of course, the one that we read so often about the long, long lives of, people of the very people. And I don't know if I have much visual to add to this other than what, other people say. Some people say, well, just recorded ages differently in those days. Well, they did, but if you add them together, the arithmetic works out the same. So, there has to be more than that involved. I think the important thing is why is in our Bible? What is there for us to learn from this? And I think more than anything else, it's just how much the people of God value old age. And so if old age is important, when I honor people who are supposed to live a long, long time, because, the more years that we attribute to their lives, the more honor. Now, there's an exception to this that we'll get to in times. But I think to start with, I think the message is old age is an honorable thing. And of course, that's a good thing to know since you are old, and so some of you are going to be. Hopefully, let's face it, some better old age than the younger. Okay, now, first one is Joshua. Is Joshua 13, 1 and 7. Now Joshua was old and stricken in years, and the Lord said unto him, Thou art old and stricken in years, and there remaineth yet very much land to be possessed. Now therefore divide this land for an inheritance unto the 9 tribes. Seems like that's saying there just does come a time when you're old enough that life has to change, and you have to turn some things over to the younger people. I think there are several reasons for that. It's harder for you to do these things, and it's time for the younger people to get involved too. So I think it's just helpful to know that the Bible supports us in that. Let's see, the next one is 2 Samuel 19:33 and after. And the king said unto Barzillai, Come thou over with me, and I will feed thee with thee in Jerusalem. And Barzillai said unto the king, How long have I to live, that I should go up with the king into Jerusalem? Thy servant will go a little way over Jordan with the king, and turn back again, and that I may die in my own city. What did I decide about this? Even the most competent need to know when to quit. Maybe I need to quit some. Maybe I've already quit. Maybe I already quit enough. Now the next one I have is Kings. David was, let's see, no, I'll read the scripture first. This is 1 Kings 1:16, 15, yeah. And Bathsheba went in unto the king into the chamber, and the king was very old. And Abishag the Shunammite ministered to the king. David was old, but he had to rise to the occasion to install Solomon as king before he died. That still happens, doesn't it? Sometimes we think that life is past its fine, we can really relax, but then things happen. And so many grandparents have to raise their grandchildren these days. I always think sometimes I've seen my contact with a lot of grandchildren over the last decade or so. And it seems like they're too kind to the people that see too much of their grandchildren, and the people don't see enough. Whereas I'm one of those that doesn't see enough. I think Mary kind of sees an awful lot of her grandchildren. I don't know if she sees too much or not, only she would know. But I do know that traditionally some people, the parents have had to go to prison for drugs and, just things that take them completely out of their children's lives. And parents, well, we do, we have to, and this is a different situation, but it was the same idea that, David thought he'd all retired and it's time for his son to take over, but then it was the wrong son and he had to get involved. Let's see, the next one is 1 Kings 11:6, I guess. Is that right? Yeah. And King Rehoboam consulted with the old men, this one, that stood before Solomon and his father while he yet lived, and said, How do you advise, and so forth. But he forsake the counsel of the old men and consulted with the young men that were grown up with him. And as we know, this did not work out, and he lost most of his kingdom because he listened to the young men rather than the old men. Of course, the old men were advising him to be receptive, but it's still it was better advice than the young men gave. Let me put it this way. Maybe I criticize it to some extent, but now I'm going to talk about the next section. This is Job 21:7. Wherefore do the wicked live, become old, yea, are mighty in power. Okay. being old is honorable, but it's no excuse for not doing the right thing. You can be old and sinful, and being old doesn't make you an honorable person. Let's see. Now I have Psalm 71:9. Cast me not off in the time of old age. Oh. The world has been known to desert people when they're old. Yes, it has. Some have known that personally. And older parents, they have been good parents, but when they're older, their families allow them to be in need of things. Does the psalmist think this even God might? So old age depression is not a new thing. Apparently, even in the psalmist days, there were people that got very depressed when they got old, to the point where they even questioned whether God would desert them. Also, this is Psalm 71:18. Now also when I am old and gray-headed, O God, forsake me not. Will we get so depressed when we get old that even afraid God will forsake us? I hope not. This is Psalm 92:12. The righteous shall flourish like a palm tree. He shall grow old like a cedar in Lebanon. Those who planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of our God. They shall bring forth fruit in old age. Now, I'm not sure when the psalmist is talking about trees and people here, but it's the same. But I assume when he means people, that the house of the Lord he talks about is virtue and right thinking. I'm a little confused with that. Somebody can straighten it out. Get it lost sometimes. Proverbs 20:29. The glory of young men is their strength, and the beauty of old men is the gray hair. Ouch! The old folks know we're not as strong as we were. Do we need reminding? Also, is gray hair all we have to offer? Let's move on. Proverbs again, 23:22. Hearken unto thy father that begat thee, and despise not thy mother when she is old. Now, that sounds like a good idea. Reminds me of something else though that I saw recently. And I've seen things like this before, but this is a case where, they have this one-child policy in China, and if any children were born accidentally over and above the one, some people just discarded them. And some of them were rescued from the trash pile and brought up as virtual slavery. But then with today's, of course, China's a little more prosperous these days, and they can afford to do things they couldn't do back then. And of course they have our DNA, all that sort of stuff. So some of them have not been matched to their parents. In one scene, these young women, they were women by then, of course, were being told to count out of their fathers, and I thought, what? Men who threw them away when they were babies, and now entitled to the respect, this deep respect that the Chinese culture gives to fatherhood. It takes more to being a father than just gene stuff. Amen. And I think we female recognize that, but we still stumble into it sometimes. People who, offer more than that still expect to have the respect that properly goes to fathers who are proper fathers. Okay, this is different. This is Ecclesiastes 4:13. Better is a poor and wise child than an old and foolish king. Is there a time when this is children? Even in these days, over 2,000 years ago? We don't think about it. There's a time to listen to children. There really is. I can we overdo it, of course. They're limited in what they know. And some of them think they know everything, whether they do or not. But still, it's just not smart to just overlook them. Because, sometimes they know things that need to be known. And so I think that it's true, yes, that from time to time, one should listen to their children, because they are wise as far as they go. Okay, next one. Isaiah 65:17 talks about a new earth, and further down, verse 20, there shall be no more thence an infant of days, nor an old man that hath not filled his days. For the child shall die 100 years old, but the sinner being 100 years old shall be accursed. I think it says a lot. I'm not sure what the infant of days is. And I guess the old man who had not filled his days, I don't know, maybe the person getting old was wasted a lot of their time, maybe. The child shall die 100 years old, I don't know. I think you're talking about somebody who maybe lives a long life, but might as well have died as children. They were accomplished is concerned. The sinner being 100 years old shall be accursed. So it's the perfect world, people will live longer, but sinners will not enjoy it. Again, it's probably takes more than just being old. Joel 28:28, huh? No, Joel 2:28. Sorry. And your sons and daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. Of course, we've heard this a lot. JFK, pray this inauguration. I think he would make a case that wouldn't you better have a young man who sees visions and an old man who dreams dreams? And I'm not sure that they mean that. The Bible means that. I think it's been two ways of saying the same thing. The time will come when, both old and young will have wisdom beyond what they do at present. And, well, I'm ready to know exactly how long this would take, and I guess as long as I expected, but should I take questions? Is that all right?
Well, yes, that's fine.
Any questions? Why I haven't included certain things that are especially important to you, which could happen because of them. Now, one thing that I didn't put in, and I'll explain to you why, is the one about when you're young, you won't where you want to, but when you're old, somebody will carry you whether you would not. Well, if it's not there, I would include it, because I think, hey, that's true, isn't it? I mean, as we lose the ability to control ourselves physically, we have to trust other people to take them to the right places. But of course, it goes on to say that this was referring to how St. Peter would die, and I certainly hope none of us need to fear dying as St. Peter did. So I decided to treat it in kind of a twisting the Bible. Well, thank you very much.